Hi, my name is Cindy Rang with the Fabric Patch in Ephrata, Washington, and we are working through our sew along on our Tannenbaum quilt, and today we're doing block number 5. It's actually our 6th block in the series, and today we're doing a block called a 4-patch or a 2x2. Okay, so if you are new and you're not sure what you're watching, we are doing a series of 10 classes as we're going through this particular quilt. It's actually a beginner series where we're going through multiple different blocks. If you are not a beginner, you could make this quilt easily in an afternoon, but what's kind of nice is we're going along and we're talking about specific techniques each time. This is the pattern. It's available with an immediate download or a printed paper copy. You can find us at fabricpatch.net. And the block that we're making this time is a 4-patch. It's also called a 2x2. And so last week what we made was just 4 little flying geese blocks because that was all we needed for this particular quilt. So it probably took all of about 5 minutes. Well, you're going to make up for it this week because this is a whole lot of blocks. And so this is your 4 patches. And so what you were told to pre-cut, and when we talked about the very first class about collecting your fabric and putting everything together, you're going to get your one marked block 5, and you should have a stack of green. And you should have a stack of whatever your Christmas balls are. So remember, mine are going to be a mixture of lots of different silvers, and so that's what's in my stack. What could be in your stack is maybe all of these little bright ones. So that's what we're making, is all of these blocks, where we've got all of the little colors mixed with all of the background blocks. So this is one of those where you could go absolutely nuts, or just make it kind of fast and easy. I would tend to make it kind of fast and easy because if you are painstakingly gonna lay things out with your green, and maybe you want this green, oh, maybe you've decided no, instead you want this green, and maybe over here you want this silver. And then you might think, oh, no, maybe I want this one. You can see that that's going to take you absolutely forever. So don't do that. First of all, what you really want to do is you want to do them in pairs. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a green and a silver. I'm going to go to my sewing machine, and using my 1/4-inch seam allowance, I'm going to sew that together. Then I'm going to take a green and a silver, or maybe it's a primary color in your case. Lay them together and sew that together. And actually, if I end up sewing a, oops, that one isn't cut right. If I end up sewing the green on top of the silver, or the silver on top of the green, it's not going to matter, because either way, when I end up with all of my little pieces that I've sewn together, I can easily just turn them around before I sew my 4 patches together. I hope that makes a little sense. But all I'm really going to do is I'm just going to take my stack of greens, take my stack of silvers. I'm going to go over to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to grab one at a time, and I'm just going to sew them together. Right sides together, 1/4-inch seam allowance, until I have both stacks totally done. We'll be back here in just a second. Okay, so here they're all chain pieced together, and so you might have one of those nice little quick cutters, or you can just snip them apart. And then once you've snipped them apart, what's going to happen again is I am going to go ahead and press them because I think it's just going to be easier, and I'm going to press everything to the green. You might decide to press everything to the bright, but you just want to be fairly consistent. So for me, I'm going to set my seam, grab a hold of the green, and as I hold on to that, I'm going to open my seam, press that way. So I'm just going to do a few of these because you will have quite a few to do. So all of these, the seams are being pressed over. I'm going to do one more. All right. The reason we've pressed them all over to the green is because now we're going to nestle our seams like we did in our other block. So now you can fuss a little bit if you want to try to decide which things are going next to which. But what you want to keep in mind is that all of these greens, let's just look up here for just a second, all of these greens, you're going to see all of those greens almost sparkly, where you'll see them again and again and again and again and again and again and again. So it doesn't matter. Everything is going to touch everything. Everything is going to be jumbled together. It doesn't make any difference. You can fuss with this as long as you want, but it's absolutely not going to matter. All you really want to do is put these together. And again, this is why they're called 2x2s or 4 patches, because what's happened is I've got these opposite. So now all I'm going to do is fold this together. And then again, this is that nestled seam like what we did before. And since I've pressed to the green here and pressed to the green there, I have that little flap right there. So what'll happen is it's created that little bump so that those line up exactly right. Now some of you might be wondering if this is one of those cases where you have to do a scant 1/4 inch. You really don't, but maybe just test one and just make sure. As long as you have a nice hot iron and as long as your seam allowance is not more than a 1/4 inch, when you sew this together and press this open, this should end up being 4.5 inches. So test one first just to make sure, but you should be all right. So I would go ahead and just put my little clip or pin it. I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to go ahead and sew a couple of these, and then I'm going to show you what they look like. All right, so here's a couple of them. I'm going to open that up, and I want you to see that because you've nestled the seam, see that's that little perfect point that we talk about all the time, and where everything comes together exactly the way that it's supposed to. And then this again is that whole idea. I think in our first class we talked about where these seams should be. So oftentimes when I have a block like this, I might start by pressing the back. And then if you feel like that's too much bulk to have over there, and again, if you count, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you've got 8 pieces of fabric right there. So this is another one of those where if you want to do your little clipping trick, you're just going to clip right here and right there. You're just going to cut right up to that seam allowance. Don't cut into that seam allowance. Oh, and then you might have a little, nope. And then we're going to press that open to press that open right there. I'm going to add just a little bit of best press. Get that flat. Get that open. And you can decide on your clipping where you want something to go. I might have clipped it the other way. In fact, let me show you what that would look like. If I would have cut through the white here and cut through the white there, so that I'm coming over to the green and over to the green, it would look like that. And again, that is absolutely what it's called, is the clipping trick. And that way you don't have all of that bulk in the center of that. So as we flip that over, you still have that nice perfect point, but you don't have any of that funny seam. I've seen people say that the way that you fix that is to beat it with a mallet. you don't have to do that. Just clip your seam, get rid of all of that bulk behind it, and then there are no hammers involved. And then I'm just going to press it from the front just to make sure that all of those seams are open. And that's it. So here we have it. Here's our little 4 patch or 2 by 2. You can measure it and just see. You might have some tiny little shards. You're going to trim off. This one is 4.5. I might have just a tiny little bit because it's 4 1/4 is what's right in the center. And so, same thing. I might just have a tiny little bit on one side. Tiny little bit on one side. Little bit. Spin it around. So we didn't trim off very much. Here's our little block. Measures 4.5 inches. So I'm going to finish that up with all of the rest of them. Press all of these the same way. Finish all of these. You're going to end up with, I believe, 24. So you have 24 of these, 24 of these to make. And then once you're done, put them all right back in your little bag that's marked block 5. And then I will see you next week for block number 6, which is class number 7. Thank you for watching our video. We invite you to leave a comment, hit the like button, or better yet, subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. You can also visit our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or Pinterest pages, or find all of those things and our online store at fabricpatch.net.